Behind the legendary career, there was one person who Miles Davies hated more than anyone else, leaving fans to wonder what could have sparked such a bitter feud. Join us as we find out who this man is and why Davis despised him so much. Becoming a jazz legend.
Musician if nobody ever heard you?
Sure.
Why?
Because I love music. It's in my head. I can't get it out.
So you listen?
Yeah.
You're hearing it yourself?
I hear it now. Knowledge is happiness for me. If I learn something, that makes me,
Still learning?
Yeah. I learned something the other night. I learned something last night. I can't wait to apply it.
Miles Davis, the undisputed master of social music, created the soundscape of modern life for over 5 decades. His artistry wasn't limited to what was heard. It was equally about what was seen. Stylish and suave, with striking looks to match, Davis was the definition of cool. But before the fame, he was just an ordinary person. Born on May 26, 1926 in Alton, Illinois, Miles Dewey Davis III entered a world of privilege and culture. His parents, Cleota May and Miles Dewey Davis Jr., were educated and successful. Cleota, a music teacher and violinist, cultivated an appreciation for music in their home, while his father, a prosperous dentist, provided stability. When Davis was a young boy, the family moved to East St. Louis, Illinois, to be closer to his father's practice. They settled in a predominantly white neighborhood, living above his father's dental office. The move came during the Great Depression, a challenging time for many families. Though they were financially secure, Davis' father devoted much of his time to work, leaving him less involved with his children. Yet, it was during this period of relative isolation that young Davis found a lifelong companion: music. At the age of 9, Davis received a trumpet from John Eubanks, a friend of his father. That gift became the catalyst for his extraordinary musical journey. Shortly after, he began lessons with Elwood Buchanan. Buchanan was a local musician whose unconventional teaching style would profoundly influence Davis' playing. He discouraged the use of vibrato, a technique involving the rapid fluctuation of pitch that was common among trumpeters at the time. If Davis overused vibrato, Buchanan didn't hesitate to rap his knuckles as a correction. This discipline taught him control and precision, hallmarks of his distinctive style. Though Davis's mother hoped he'd take up the violin, his passion for the trumpet was undeniable. By age 12, Davis was certain music was his calling. For his 13th birthday, his father gave him a new trumpet, further encouraging his ambition. With this gift, Davis began playing in local bands and sought advanced instruction from Joseph Gustad, the principal trumpet player for the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. His dedication extended beyond formal lessons. He performed in talent shows with his siblings and took every opportunity to improve. High school was an influential period for Davis. He joined the marching band, where he enhanced his skills and built his confidence. Despite encountering racial discrimination in music competitions, he viewed these experiences as opportunities to grow stronger. He immersed himself in music theory, studying diligently to refine his technique and expand his understanding. During this period, he met Irene Berth, his first girlfriend, who supported his dreams and encouraged his passion. Davis' rising talent didn't go unnoticed. By his teenage years, he was performing with the Rum Boogie Orchestra, also known as the Blue Devils, led by Eddie Randall. As the band's musical director, Davis took on significant responsibilities, from hiring musicians to organizing rehearsals. He later credited this role with teaching him invaluable lessons about leadership and collaboration. Around this time, he also became friends with Clark Terry, a skilled trumpeter who shared insights on technique and performance. Davis' reputation as a prodigious young musician grew, attracting attention from prominent jazz figures. The renowned saxophonist, Sonny Stitt, even invited him to join a touring band. However, his mother insisted he finish high school, and Davis reluctantly declined the offer. Though disappointed, he focused on completing his education. knowing it was a stepping stone to his dreams. In 1994, after graduating, Davis and his girlfriend had their first child, a daughter named Cheryl. Around the same time, Billy Eckstine's band, a jazz powerhouse featuring legends like Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker, came to St. Louis. When the band's trumpet player fell ill, Davis stepped in, performing with them for 2 weeks at Club Riviera. This experience was transformative as he played alongside jazz icons, which deepened his resolve to pursue a career in music. Despite his mother's hopes that he would follow his sister to Fisk University and study classical music, Davis knew his future lay elsewhere. Davis was determined to move to New York City, the epicenter of the jazz world. He was drawn to the vibrant, improvisational world of jazz, where he could craft a sound uniquely his own. In New York, Davis searched for opportunities to grow, absorbing influences and refining his craft. This determination was what set him on a path to revolutionize jazz. His vision, discipline, and innovation transformed not just his life, but the entire landscape of modern music, setting his legacy as one of the most influential artists of the 20th century. Despite his undeniable talent, Miles Davis faced immense personal and professional challenges that nearly destroyed his promising career. By 1949, the renowned musician found himself in a bad situation as his once thriving career began to falter. Though he performed briefly with Bud Powell and made guest appearances in cities like New York, Chicago, and Detroit, he still wasn't financially stable. By early 1950, Davis was grappling with mounting debts, including overdue hotel bills, and he risked losing his car. These struggles coincided with his drop into hard substance addiction, a costly and destructive habit that took hold of him before his 24th birthday. Reflecting on this period, Davis later confessed that he lost his sense of discipline and control over his life. During this trying time, Davis's personal life showed no remorse. His partner, Irene, gave birth to their second son, Miles IV, but the pressures of a growing family only added to his burden. Seeking solace, Davis struck up a friendship with boxer Johnny Bratton, whose discipline inspired him to take up boxing as a means of coping. But instead of taking up his responsibilities, Davis chose to leave Irene and his 3 children in New York under the care of jazz singer Betty Carter while he continued touring with other musicians. Sadly, Davis's musical genius was disrupted when he was arrested in Los Angeles for possession of illegal substances. Although he was later acquitted, the scandal was reported in a magazine, damaging his reputation and making it even harder for him to secure work. By the early 1950s, Davis' trumpet skills were evolving, and he was experimenting with new techniques. But his addiction remained a crippling force. He resorted to recording studio sessions, borrowing money, and even taking advantage of others to sustain his habit. His struggles became painfully public when singer Cab Calloway discussed Davis's addiction in an interview, which really hurt Davis and made him frustrated. In a bid to escape the toxic environment of New York's scene dominated by illegal substances, Davis returned to his hometown of St. Louis to live with his father. This move marked the beginning of a slow but determined effort to regain control of his life. After a period of reflection, he relocated to Detroit, where he performed with the local musicians and gradually began to rebuild his confidence. Despite his continued substance use, Davis found the strength to overcome it, emerging physically and mentally stronger. When he eventually returned to New York, he was ready to revive his career. Though he faced new challenges, including a struggle with his substance addiction, Davis was on a path to reclaim his legacy and redefine the world of music. In all these, there was someone who Davis didn't like. Who was that and why? The rivalry.
Get that. It's very important to realize. That's why they're all jealous of us. He's a good trumpet player, but he doesn't have anything extra.
The 1980s jazz scene was a stream of creativity and competition, but few rivalries captured the public's imagination, quite like the one between Miles Davis and Wynton Marsalis. Both men were giants in their own right, though they approached jazz from vastly different perspectives. Davis, the elder statesman, was known for his trailblazing spirit, unusual musical experiments, and personal style. Marsalis, by contrast, was a young musician who championed jazz's classic roots and believed in preserving its traditions. Their differences sparked a feud that not only divided fans, but also became a defining narrative of jazz during that era. Miles Davis had already built his image as a living legend by the 1980s. With decades of groundbreaking work behind him, from Kind of Blue to his fusion experiments in the 1970s, Davis was good with innovation. He thrived on pushing boundaries, whether by blending genres or redefining his sound. His music was as unpredictable as his personality, and he was never one to play by the rules. On the other hand, Wynton Marsalis was the fresh face of jazz. Born into a prestigious New Orleans jazz family, Marsalis was already a virtuoso trumpeter by his early 20s, equally comfortable in the realms of classical music and jazz. At just 23, he took the jazz world by storm, earning accolades for his technical ability and dedication to jazz's traditional sounds. Unlike Davis, Marsalis was a purist. He saw jazz as a sacred art form with clear roots and traditions that needed to be preserved. To him, Davis's constant reinvention of jazz was a violation. Their different perspectives set the stage for a clash that Columbia Records, their shared label, hoped to avoid. George Butler, a vice president at Columbia, envisioned a collaboration between the two, a symbolic passing of the torch from one generation to the next. Butler reportedly went so far as to urge Davis to call Marsalis on his birthday, hoping to foster a kind of friendship, but Davis dismissed the idea. He saw no reason to extend a hand to the young trumpeter, especially one who had openly criticized him. Marsalis's critiques of Davis were often biting. He disapproved of Davis' flamboyant outfits, which he derisively referred to as dresses, and found his experimental music too far removed from what he considered real jazz. For Davis, these remarks weren't just criticism. They were insults to his identity and artistry. Music and personal expression were inseparable for Davis, and he wasn't one to take such judgments lightly. The simmering tension between the two came to a dramatic head in 1986 at the Vancouver Jazz Festival. Marsalis, along with his bandmates, including the likes of Jeff Tane Watts, Robert Hurst, and Marcus Roberts, was going to the festival. Along the way, his colleagues playfully teased him, asking him if he would confront Davis in person. Marsalis, perhaps fueled by a mix of boldness and irritation, decided to make a bold move. During Davis's set at the festival, Marsalis walked onto the stage uninvited, his trumpet in hand. The audience was stunned, and so was Davis. Accounts of what transpired next vary depending on whom you ask. By one account, Davis shook his head in disbelief and bluntly told Marsalis to leave the stage. Marsalis, however, began to play, causing Davis to abruptly stop the music. The atmosphere was electric with tension. After what felt like an eternity, Marsalis finally left the stage, leaving behind an audience and a jazz community reeling from the audacity of the moment. Marsalis later offered his version of events, toning down the drama. He recalled that when he approached the stage, Davis was playing the organ, and the music was so loud he could barely hear what Davis said to him. When the music stopped, Davis spoke briefly, but according to Marsalis, he didn't use any harsh language. Marsalis believed the incident had been blown out of proportion and insisted he never meant to disrespect Davis. He even joked that he didn't collect the $300 payment he was offered for the night. However, others who witnessed the event tell a different story. Wallace Roney, a trumpeter and close associate of Davis, remembered the event clearly. According to Roney, Marsalis approached Davis mid-set and asked if he could join in. Davis, caught off guard and unimpressed, responded with a firm no. Still, Marsalis stayed on stage and began playing anyway. Davis, unwilling to tolerate the interruption, stopped the performance altogether and ordered Marsalis to leave in no uncertain terms. Some in the audience even booed Marsalis as he exited. Different recollections highlight the subjective nature of memory. especially when emotions run high. What is clear, however, is that the incident heightened the clash between two opposing visions of jazz. For Davis, Marsalis's interruption wasn't a tribute. It was an affront to his artistry and the integrity of his performance. For Marsalis, stepping onto Davis's stage was perhaps a mixture of youthful courage and a desire to assert himself as a peer to the older musician. The feud between Davis and Marsalis continued to simmer in the years that followed, but it also underscored the evolving dynamics of jazz. Their rivalry was as much about ideology as it was about personal differences, and it sparked debates that continue to this day. Whether you see their feud as a creative rivalry or a generational conflict, it undeniably shaped the narrative of jazz in the 80s, leaving behind a story as compelling as the music itself. Now let's look at one aspect of Davis' life that influenced his career: relationships and health.
Like what?
Well, you said you were pimping for a while.
Is that
Feed the
bad?
habit.
Is that bad? Pretty women, you know. And if you see me with a woman, she's gonna be pretty, gorgeous.
Miles Davis' personal life was a complex journey, filled with much intensity and emotional problems. Known for his visionary contributions to jazz, Davis also grappled with deep personal issues that often found their way into the public eye. His relationships, especially with women, were marked by passion, but unfortunately, they were also filled with conflict. This was particularly evident in his marriage to Frances Taylor, a gifted dancer he met in Los Angeles. After dating for several years, they married in 1959, but their relationship was anything but easy. Davis, often described as a man of intense emotions, struggled with his own inner demons, which played a significant role in the unraveling of his marriage. His frequent outbursts of anger and moments of violence had its impact. Davis himself later admitted that whenever he struck Frances, he felt an overwhelming sense of guilt, knowing that it wasn't entirely her fault. His jealousy, a volatile temper, and a growing dependence on alcohol and illicit substances contributed to the breakdown of their relationship. As the years went on, his substance use escalated, particularly in response to the chronic pain caused by sickle cell anemia, a disease that affects the red blood cells and causes excruciating joint pain. In an attempt to numb his pain, Davis relied heavily on alcohol and hard substances, which only worsened his emotional instability, leading to periods of paranoia where he would imagine people in his home who were not really there. Despite these challenges, Frances remained with Davis for a long time, but eventually, in 1968, the marriage ended in divorce. In the same year, however, he quickly remarried, this time to Betty Mabry, a 23-year-old model and songwriter. Betty was a breath of fresh air in Davis' life, introducing him to new musical influences that would profoundly affect his career. She was a key figure in exposing him to rock, soul, and funk music, and played him records from artists like Aretha Franklin and Jimi Hendrix. Davis was particularly taken with Hendrix's band of gypsies, and Betty's influence helped him transform musically. His work began to reflect the new sounds he was absorbing, and this shift marked a new chapter in his evolution as a musician. However, their relationship, much like his previous one, was short-lived. Davis's insecurities and jealousy led him to suspect Betty of an affair with Hendrix, although there was never any proof. The marriage ended, and the couple parted ways. After the dissolution of his marriage to Betty, Davis entered into another significant relationship with actress Cicely Tyson. Cicely, who would later become a pillar of support in Davis's life, played an instrumental role in his personal recovery. Encouraging him to confront his addiction to hard substances, she urged him to refocus on his music. Thanks to her support, Davis began to reduce his substance use, which had taken a severe toll on both his health and his career. In 1981, they married, but even this union was not without its struggles. Though Cicely was a stabilizing force, the marriage was marked by frequent arguments and disagreements, leading to their eventual divorce. Their separation, though painful, was part of a larger pattern of failed relationships that seemed to mirror the chaos in Davis' personal life. In the latter years of his life, Davis formed a close bond with sculptor Joe Gelbard. Joe, who was 34 years old at the time, introduced Davis to the world of painting, which quickly became a new passion for him. Together, they embarked on numerous art projects, and over time, their relationship grew into a romantic one. However, as was often the case for Davis M., his health continued to deteriorate. By 1985, he had developed diabetes, and his condition required daily insulin injections. The medication he took to manage his health often left him feeling irritable and aggressive, and Joe, unfortunately, found herself on the receiving end of Davis's occasional attacks. In the midst of his personal struggles, Davis' physical health was rapidly declining. His hip, which had been giving him problems for years, became a source of constant pain. During a tour in Japan in the early 1960s, the pain became unbearable, requiring him to undergo surgery to replace the hip joint. Doctors used bone from his shin in an attempt to repair the damage, but the operation failed to produce the desired results. After spending 3 months in the hospital recovering, Davis grew restless and left before his recovery was complete. His decision to return home prematurely led to another accident, and he had to undergo further surgery, this time using a plastic hip joint to help him move better. Despite these setbacks, Davis returned to performing in November 1960, even though his health was far from perfect. But little did he know that the worst was yet to come: Miles Davis's demise.
I said, I'm still a drug addict if I use drugs. It's like being an alcoholic. But every day it gets better. Every day, every day. Then gradually it leaves your head.
As the years wore on, Davis faced an increasing number of health complications. He battled not only with his hip problems, but also with a severe liver infection that kept him hospitalized for several months. By this point, his album sales were on the decline, with his releases selling only 40,000 to 50,000 copies per record, a stark contrast to the 100,000 copies he had once sold. Financial difficulties added to the pressure, as Davis struggled to manage his health while dealing with the stresses of his career and finances. His reliance on different kinds of hard substances worsened, further diminishing his health. Despite his declining sales and troubled personal life, Davis's music continued to evolve, with his band showing improvement even after a devastating tour in Japan. However, by the mid-1980s, his health took another turn for the worse. While touring in the United States as an opening act for Herbie Hancock, he was hospitalized once more, this time for ulcers and a hernia. Davis' health continued to spiral downward, and in the early 1990s, he suffered a stroke that temporarily paralyzed his right hand. Unable to play his trumpet, Davis was devastated. Cicely Tyson, ever his steadfast companion, cared for him as he underwent treatment from a Chinese acupuncturist. After 3 months, Davis was able to play again, but his body had been weakened, and his health remained fragile. One of the most frightening moments of Davis' later years occurred during a tour in Madrid, when he suddenly collapsed after a 2-hour performance. He was flown back to the United States, and rumors began to circulate about his health. Some speculated that he had contracted AIDS, but his manager quickly dismissed these claims, explaining that Davis was simply recovering from pneumonia and the removal of a small growth from his vocal cords. In September 1991, Davis entered St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica for routine tests. Doctors recommended that he have a tube inserted into his throat to help him breathe, as he had been battling pneumonia. This caused him so much distress that it led to another stroke, and Davis fell into a coma. After several days on life support, he passed away on September 28, that same year at the age of 65. His demise was the result of a combination of factors, including the stroke, pneumonia, and respiratory failure. Miles Davis left behind a legacy of revolutionary music, but his final years were marked by constant struggles with his health and personal life. Despite the immense talent he displayed throughout his career, His battles with addiction, relationships, and physical ailments painted a picture of a man constantly at war with himself. In many ways, his life was a reflection of the music he created, bold, intense, and filled with both beauty and tragedy. His influence, however, endures, not only in the notes he played, but also in the way he reshaped the landscape of jazz, pushing the genre forward with every new experiment, every new sound. The legacy of the legendary jazz musician Miles Davis is one that continues to evoke both admiration and controversy. While his extraordinary talent and influence on the world of music are indisputable, the darker aspects of his personal life cannot be ignored. As his family and estate, led by his daughter Cheryl Davis, his son Aaron Davis, and his nephew Vince Wilburn, are tasked with managing his legacy, they are confronted with a difficult situation of how to honor his remarkable contributions to jazz. The Miles Davis estate controls the rights to both his music and image, but not all members of the family agree on how his legacy should be preserved. Notably, two of his sons, Miles Davis IV and Gregory Davis, were excluded from the estate for reasons that remain unclear. However, Gregory Davis did not remain silent about the complexities of his father's life. In 2006, he published Dark Megas, The Jekyll and Hyde Life of Miles Davis, a controversial book that painted a much darker picture of the jazz icon. The book detailed a side of Miles Davis that was cruel, violent, and at times deeply disturbing. Gregory claimed that his father had physically and emotionally attacked people close to him, including women. In response, the estate dismissed Gregory's account, labeling it as false and claiming that it was based on nothing but fabrication. But Miles Davis himself admitted in his 1990 autobiography that he had physically hurt women, including his third wife, actress Cicely Tyson. In a shocking admission, Davis even mentioned his involvement in pimping, a revelation that stunned many of his fans. The fact that Davis openly acknowledged these darker aspects of his life makes it difficult to dismiss Gregory's accounts as mere exaggerations. Despite these unsettling disclosures, the estate seems to be avoiding any discussion of the harm he caused, particularly when it comes to his bad behavior. When questioned about the allegations, Vince Wilburn Jr. and Aaron Davis quickly dismissed them, claiming they never witnessed any of it. Yet, deep down, they must know the truth. It seems the family is more focused on maintaining the iconic image of Miles Davis as a musical genius, even if it means ignoring or suppressing the darker side of his legacy. Influence and accolades.
If you know anything about music, you know Miles Davis talks better than just about anyone when he has a trumpet on his lips. Spend some time with him and you begin to realize he talks pretty good even without it.
Miles Davis stands as one of the most esteemed and influential figures in the evolution of music. His contributions have left a lasting impression on the world of jazz and beyond, earning him recognition as a pioneer of 20th century music by The Guardian, as he led many of the key developments in the world of jazz. Descriptions of his legacy often include titles like one of the great innovators in jazz and the Picasso of jazz, reflecting his monumental role in reshaping the genre. The Rolling Stone Encyclopedia of Rock and Roll noted Davis' unparalleled impact, asserting that he played a crucial and inevitably controversial role in every major development in jazz since the mid-1940s, which greatly emphasizes his profound influence on rock music. His boldness as both a musician and a social critic earned him his place as a cultural icon, admired not only for his revolutionary sound, but also for his boldness in fashion and attitude. Davis' career is a testament to innovation and risk-taking. According to William Ruhlman of AllMusic, his journey through music is the history of jazz from the mid-1940s to the early 1990s, and he was at the forefront of nearly every major transformation in the genre during this time. Ruhlman even suggests that jazz stopped evolving when Davis wasn't there to push it forward. Davis was a constant force of change, tearing apart and reimagining musical forms. His work was often seen as a critique of bebop, the era's dominant style. Davis' career led to the birth of cool jazz, hard bop, modal improvisation, and jazz rock fusion. His profound impact went beyond his innovative sound, reaching deep into the essence of musical performance. Davis's approach to jazz, rooted in the African American tradition of individual expression and emphatic, dynamic interaction, changed the way musicians approached improvisation and collaboration, with his influence resonating with countless jazz musicians. Davis's legacy continues to be celebrated worldwide. In 2016, digital publication The Pudding conducted a study of his influence, revealing that 2,452 Wikipedia pages reference Davis, with over 286 of them citing him as a direct influence. This recognition highlights the enduring power of his work and his profound effect on the landscape of modern music. On November 5, 2009, United States Representative John Conyers from Michigan introduced a significant resolution in the House of Representatives to honor the legendary jazz album Kind of Blue on its 50th anniversary. The measure not only celebrated this outstanding record, but also recognized jazz as an irreplaceable part of American cultural heritage. It called on the United States government to take steps to preserve and promote jazz as an art form. The resolution received overwhelming support, passing with a unanimous vote of 409 to 0. The trumpet used by Davis in the recording of Kind of Blue is now proudly displayed at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. This trumpet was gifted to the university by Arthur Buddy Gist, a close friend of Davis who first met the iconic musician in 1949. The donation not only honored Davis' legacy, but also led to the university's jazz program being named the Miles Davis Jazz Studies Program, a fitting tribute to a master of the genre. In 1986, the New England Conservatory of Music awarded Davis an honorary doctorate in recognition of his extraordinary contributions to music. Over his illustrious career, Davis earned numerous accolades from the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, NARAS, including 8 Grammy Awards, a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, and 3 Grammy Hall of Fame Awards, making him one of the most respected figures in music history. Davis' legacy has continued to inspire generations. In 2001, the documentary The Miles Davis Story, directed by Mike Dibb, won an International Emmy Award for Best Arts Documentary. Since 2005, the Miles Davis Jazz Committee has organized an annual Miles Davis Jazz Festival, an event that celebrates his musical genius and keeps his memory alive. The same year, the biography, The Last Miles, was published, offering a deep dive into the final chapter of his career and an exhibition of his paintings titled The Last Miles, The Music of Miles Davis, 1980-1991, was held in London. This exhibition provided an intimate look into the artist's later years, focusing on his unique visual expressions alongside his musical innovations. Additionally, in 2006, Davis was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, acknowledging his profound influence on genres far beyond jazz. His legacy continued to be celebrated in 2012, when the United States Postal Service issued commemorative stamps featuring his image, ensuring that future generations would remember and honor the man who transformed the soundscape of modern music. Miles Ahead is an American film directed by Don Cheadle, who also co-wrote the script alongside Stephen Bagelman, Stephen J. Rivel, and Christopher Wilkinson. The film offers an artistic interpretation of the life and music of jazz legend Miles Davis, exploring both his personal struggles and his career. Premiering at the New York Film Festival in October 2015, the movie features a stellar cast, including Cheadle himself, who plays Davis, as well as Emayatsi Corinealdi as Frances Taylor, Davis' first wife. The film also stars Ewan McGregor, Michael Stuhlbarg, and Lakeith Stanfield. 2015 was a remarkable year for Davis, with his legacy being celebrated in various ways. A statue of the iconic musician was erected in his hometown of Alton, Illinois, and he was voted the greatest jazz musician by listeners of BBC Radio and Jazz FM. Prestigious publications have also consistently ranked him among the greatest jazz musicians of all time. His artistry transcended the music world, leaving a profound mark that continues to resonate with new generations. Furthermore, in 2019, the documentary Miles Davis, Birth of the Cool, directed by Stanley Nelson, debuted at the Sundance Film Festival. It later aired on PBS as part of the American Master series, providing an in-depth look into Davis' transformative impact on jazz and popular music. However, Davis' legacy is not without controversy. Jazz critic Stanley Crouch sharply criticized Davis, calling him the most brilliant sellout in the history of jazz, particularly due to his embrace of jazz fusion. A 1993 essay by Robert Walzer in the Musical Quarterly also took issue with Davis' playing, suggesting that he missed more notes than other major trumpet players, which raised questions about the ultimate value of his work. Music critic James Lincoln Collier, in the same essay, acknowledged Davis's influence, but controversially labeled him an adequate instrumentalist rather than a great one. In 2013, the AV Club published a piece that praised Davis' musical genius, but also criticized his personal life, particularly his bad behavior towards his wives. Writer Sonia Saraya highlighted Davis' musical achievements while addressing the darker aspects of his character, acknowledging the complex and often troubling nature of his legacy. This sentiment was echoed by others who described his treatment of women as shameful. Despite his brilliance as a musician, Davis' personal life remains a deeply complicated aspect of his legacy. So what do you think about Miles Davis and the challenges that shaped his career? Let us know in the comments. If you want more interesting revelations, be sure to like, subscribe, and watch the next video shown on your screen. See you there.